What's going on, Institute of Clinical Excellence? Best day of the week. It is Fitness Athlete Friday. We're coming to you live from the Barbell Physio Gym. And today on Fitness Athlete Friday, we're going to be talking about pull-ups for physios. Pull-ups are one of those exercises that we don't think a lot about as physical therapists, but can have a significant impact on our athletes' performance, as well as potential injuries that they develop, especially when we're talking about the CrossFit world, where the pull-up is such a foundational and essential movement to doing well in CrossFit. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. It's something we spend a lot of time in the fitness athlete courses talking about, just because of that extreme importance. But before we jump into talking about pull-ups, we got to talk about some courses that are coming up. First, next weekend, November 11th and 12th, Jeff will be in Toronto, Canada, doing her cervical spine management course. The following weekend, November 18th, he'll also be in Milwaukee teaching the same course. And total spine thrust manipulation by Justin Dunaway, November 11th and 12th, that will be in Las Vegas. Guys, I just took that course 2 weekends ago. I hosted it here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a phenomenal course. I can't recommend it highly enough for anybody that treats any spinal conditions. Jeff just did a great job. We had some very, very senior therapists there that have spent years of working in spinal manipulation and teaching courses for other people that just had phenomenal feedback for Justin. So whether you're brand new to spinal manipulation or very experienced in it, this is a course that you're going to get a lot from. So I can't speak highly enough about it. Also, November 18th and 19th, our fitness athlete division is doing their live course in Greensboro, North Carolina. So that's Mitch Babcock and Ryan Smith lead that course. Again, that's in Greensboro, North Carolina. We've been getting nothing but great feedback on this course. So good that I'm going to actually make the trip to Greensboro myself to be an attendee there and learn a little bit from these two guys who are absolutely crushing it on this course. So take a look at ice.physio for those course listings and to get signed up while you still have time. Now let's jump into talking about pull-ups a little bit. As I mentioned a minute ago, pull-ups are incredibly important to the CrossFit athlete or the fitness athlete. So we really need to look at what they're doing and how we can help them perform those better, from not just a sports side, but also from a health side. So pull-ups are going to come up in every CrossFitter's workouts at least once a week. And it is something that we have to be smarter at analyzing and helping athletes with if we want to keep them performing optimally and as healthy as possible. Now we're going to start and kind of talk about the continuum from development of strict strength to talking a little bit about kipping pull-ups. If you're not familiar with our pull-up, where we use a little body momentum to get moving, and it's incredibly controversial in the sports world, and we're going to cover some topics with kipping pull-ups. But before we talk about kipping, we have to first talk about strict pull-up strength, because that is the foundation for adding momentum. Some CrossFit gyms will do this, some CrossFit gyms won't, but CrossFit headquarters stance is that we need to develop strict pull-up strength prior to moving to more advanced movements like kipping pull-up. We always want to master more static movements before more dynamic movements. CrossFit headquarters preaches that nonstop, so something to really consider when you're making your decision on, is kipping pull-up safe. But let's first talk about strict pull-ups. So getting your first pull-up is a pretty significant deal. Your first strict pull-up is something that a lot of athletes have to spend a lot of time working on to get over the hurdle of that first pull-up. And it's also something that I see a lot of athletes get stuck on because they're not using the right tools. And let's talk about those tools. If you can't perform a strict pull-up, the main tool that most CrossFit gyms are going to employ is going to be to use a band-assisted pull-up, where we hang a resistance band from a pull-up bar, so it's hanging down low. The athlete can put either their knee or their foot into the pull-up band, and that band will provide them with a little assistance to perform the movement. Now, having a little assistance is great, but there's a problem with using the band. And this doesn't mean it's always bad. We just have to understand its limitations so we know when to apply it and when to maybe use other tools. So with the band, when the athlete's in the very bottom of the pull-up position, the band has a lot of tension on it. It's going to provide a lot of assistance. When the athlete's at the top of the pull-up range, there's going to be a lot less tension on the band, and the band's going to be providing a lot less assistance. So the unfortunate thing that we see a lot with people performing band-assisted pull-ups is they never actually develop strength through the entire range of motion of the pull-up, and therefore they never actually get away from doing band-assisted pull-ups. It just becomes a crutch that they can never get off of. Because that bottom tension of band is so high, they never develop that starting strength to the pull-up, and if you can't really get strong in that bottom position to start to generate force and speed, it's going to make that top position really difficult to finish. So we're going to talk about 3 exercises that I like to use that I think are going to provide better assistance on developing strict pull-up strength. So the first one we're going to talk about is going to be the toe-assisted pull-up. So what's a toe-assisted pull-up? Well, we're going to take a plyometric box and have the athlete stand on it. And we want a box that's high enough that when the athlete's standing up at the top, their chin is right over the pull-up bar. They're going to grab the pull-up bar and then they're going to drop down into a squat. So their legs are then providing the assistance rather than the band. Why is that an advantage? Well, the athlete can produce only as much force as is absolutely necessary with their legs to perform the movement. So if they need to unload 50% of their body weight, they can do that. If they need to unload 25% of their body weight, they can do that. Obviously, it's a little subjective, but it becomes an easier way for an athlete to provide a more consistent amount of assistance through full range of motion. So they're not going to get too much assistance at the bottom and not enough at the top, or vice versa. It's just going to let them be a little bit more effective in developing pull-up strength through full range of motion. The second exercise I like to use, and I use this a ton, even in athletes that have developed the capacity to do a lot of strict pull-ups and kipping pull-ups, is active hangs. Active hangs, where I tend to see issues with people's pull-up is in the very bottom position of their pull-up. Maybe they're doing a kipping pull-up and they just kind of bottom out and they put a lot of force through their shoulder. So the active hang is going to be just hanging from a pull-up bar and performing some shoulder shrugs to really work on keeping the entire shoulder girdle, shoulder musculature very active so that it's protecting the more passive structures in the shoulder. And so the athlete's just going to repeatedly shrug up and down. For a lot of athletes that are working on developing their first strict muscle pull-up, performing these active hangs is going to be really great at getting their starting strength really, really good. That's one of the positions where athletes struggle with the most is the bottom and the top. So we really want to get that bottom position as strong as possible. The third exercise that we'll use to develop strict pull-up strength is going to be eccentrics, where the athlete either jumps to where their chin's over the bar or stands up on a box to where their chin's over the bar, then slowly lowers themselves down through the full range of motion. Now, eccentric pull-ups is really important to coach the athlete on the need to have a slow tempo there. What we'll see a lot of times is the athlete will get about halfway down and then boom, just bottom out, let all that tension go, and not actually focus on controlling through the full range of motion. So those are 3 exercises that I think are typically going to be a little bit better than a band-assisted pull-up, something that you can mention to athletes that are working on their first strict pull-up, or maybe dealing with some shoulder issues that you think might get better when they have better control of their shoulder girdle. Now, are band-assisted pull-ups bad? No, not necessarily. I just don't think that they're going to lead as well to the development of strict pull-up strength. When I use band-assisted pull-ups during a metabolic conditioning workout, it's going to be a little bit better to give them a pull-up where they're still developing some strength in the pull-up position, but the band-assisted is going to allow them to still move with the speed that would be necessary to keep the metabolic conditioning part of the workout high. So I would bias band-assisted pull-ups during metabolic conditioning workouts and these 3 pull-up variations that we just talked about more as part of their warm-up or part of a strict pull-up strength-specific program that they can employ to complement each other a little bit better. Now, what we see in a lot of CrossFit gyms is gyms that skip this development of strict pull-up strength and jump prematurely into the kipping pull-up. The kipping pull-up is simply a pull-up where the body goes through what we call a kip, where it goes from an arch position to a hollow position to generate force through the entire body that the athlete then transfers vertically into a pull-up. Why does CrossFit advocate this kipping pull-up? Well, first of all, let's cover this. It's not a cheating pull-up, as a lot of people would say it is. The kipping pull-up is simply a way that CrossFit uses entire body momentum to perform more work in less time. You're also going to use more muscles per pull-up if you do it this way. I like to use the analogy when people say that a kipping pull-up is a cheating pull-up. Do you consider a push press a cheating strict press? A push press is simply using some body momentum to generate force into a barbell that you then transfer through your shoulders to do a overhead press. Kipping pull-up is very, very similar. And when done properly, it's really important to note that a kipping pull-up is not an uncontrolled pull-up. It is very, very controlled. And if you go look at some videos on my Instagram page or my website, you'll see some good examples of people that have incredible control of their kipping pull-up. And that's what CrossFit headquarters advocates for, is these controlled kipping pull-ups. Unfortunately, just like anything in the fitness world, you're going to see some really poor examples of this. You're going to see some gyms where kipping pull-ups are done incredibly uncontrolled, just like you're going to find some personal trainers out there having athletes squat and deadlift and overhead press with what we would consider horrible form. It happens in every aspect of fitness, so this is not something that is specific only to CrossFit. When these kipping pull-ups are done with proper form and proper control, I personally don't look at it as anything more dangerous, but I also think it's really important for us to note, and we can have an argument over the danger thing all day long. I think it's important for us to note that when CrossFitters are coming to us, they're coming to us because they love CrossFit. Just like when a runner comes to us, they're coming to us because they love running. And if we try to tell them that what they're doing is unsafe, or we try to tell them that they need to completely stop what they're doing, and we bash something that they believe in as hardcore as CrossFitters believe in CrossFit, we're going to lose the ability to help those patients. They're going to find somewhere else to go. So I don't think it's personally our place to tell people that they shouldn't be doing kipping pull-ups if they have the prerequisite strength and control that we've already discussed. Now, there are certainly going to be some times where we have to tell athletes, hey, for a period of time, we need to step back from the kipping pull-up and rework on developing strict strength. But that is 100% something that CrossFit headquarters would agree with. A kipping pull-up does not replace the development of strict strength. And even as an athlete has developed the capacity to do a few strict pull-ups and a good number of kipping pull-ups, CrossFit would still advocate your need to continue to develop strict pull-up strength. So let's keep that in mind when we're working with athletes that are working on their kipping pull-ups. Final thing that I want to note about pull-ups that is very important, something we focus on a lot in the Advanced Concepts course, is the volume around pull-ups. Specifically, I like to look at volume in specific workouts and over the course of a week, because unfortunately the volume of pull-ups will sometimes lead to injuries. Prime example of that is the workout Murph that's done on Memorial Day in memoriam of Michael Murphy, a special operations soldier killed in Afghanistan. So the workout Murph is a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, 1 mile run. And every year after Murph, I unfortunately see a number of athletes that come to me with prolonged swelling of their biceps, incredible soreness in their biceps, and loss of range of motion. Every now and then their urine will be darkened in color, indicating that they have potential for rhabdo, which is obviously a serious medical condition, and I end up having to refer them to a primary care because that is more than muscle soreness. That's something that they need to have medically examined. So one thing that I really like to emphasize with average Joe CrossFitters is the volume of pull-ups that they do in a workout. And I typically tell them that 50 is a good number to be at. And they need to really watch for those acute spikes in the number of pull-ups that come up in their programming. A lot of times when that Murph comes up and they go from doing, maybe max of 45 or 50 pull-ups in a workout and they go to doing 100, a lot of times that'll get them in trouble and they'll develop that rhabdo. Over the course of a week, I typically like to tell people to try to limit pull-ups as well as toes to bar and muscle-ups, which are very similar movements using pretty much the same musculature, to around 100 a week. Now, obviously, over the course of time and training more, that number, it might be less, it might be more, but I think that's a good starting point for most average CrossFitters that have been doing it for a little while and have developed strict and kipping pull-up strength, and then maybe give them some strong education prior to Memorial Day when they're looking at doing 100 pull-ups, on maybe spending some time developing their pull-up capacity so that they're more prepared for that program. This gave you some insights into how we in the fitness athlete division look at the pull-up and kipping pull-up. I'll hang around for a few minutes and answer any questions that pop up.